Hi, how are you? I'm at Singapore. I have been here for the past 4 days, and I thought that I film you a bit when my husband is at work, sitting on my hotel's balcony. It's quite hot in here, as you may imagine. I thought that I'd tell you a little bit about this peculiar state in Asia. So this is quite a small country. It's a country and a city, and the city is the country. So it's I think 21st in the list of smallest countries in the world. I try to keep this microphone as close to my mouth as possible because there is quite a lot of background noise in here, and there are ants. Yeah, last night it was a dreadful thunderstorm, so there is water on the balcony, and the ants come for the water, I guess. Well, this is a peculiar town, like I did, or a country. It's one of the world's richest, although it's the middle of the Asia, and it's quite different than its neighboring countries. This is somehow a combination of different cultures and different countries. About 2/3 of the population are from China originally, and then the next largest group is from Malaysia, that is the neighboring country, so they are Malays, and then there are Indians, and then multiple other nationalities with the smaller proportions. Europeans and white people are the minority in here when you go to town and see the picture that is laid out on you in there. And of course, because there are different nationalities, there are different religions. The Buddhists are the majority, and then there is some 20% of Christians, and then there are some 15% Muslims. So you can find the temples of every religion in this town, or multiple temples, because there are a little bit more than 5 million people in here, despite its small size. And it shows because all the buildings are like dreadfully high, like really, really high. The Singapore dollar is a little less than euro and the US dollars, and of course less than a pound. But like I said, this is a very wealthy country. There is a large banking sector, which is seen by looking at the tall buildings, because there are marks of like there is a Bank of China. I can see it from my window, and Maybank. And when you walk around the city, pretty much every large bank is represented in here. And the buildings are very tall. It's a little bit artificial look when you see when you look around the city. And of course, people like me think that what if there would be an earthquake or tsunami or something like that, what would happen to this whole country? But I wish there won't be anything like that, because all these buildings are tens and tens of stories high. And for that, we are in a hotel that was built in 1800s, because my husband had a certain budget to book the flights and the hotel and everything else for this trip. And usually it's me that make the bookings. So I'm sorry I didn't explain. We are here. My husband has some work to do in here, so I tagged along. When the opportunity came, we thought that it would be fun to come here, because it's very likely that otherwise we wouldn't travel here among all the destinations that we could travel. But because he has some work to do here, then it's nice to have a few days and look around the town or this country at the same time. So anyway, we had a budget that we can book the hotel in, and I looked at the various hotels, and there were like 14 stories high, and I was like, oh my god, I cannot sleep in that high building. I just can't. Whoever has seen, when they were children, the Flaming Tower movie, can't. And my husband doesn't like it because he gets seasick in tall buildings. Well, then I found this nice little hotel that was built in 1800s and has only 5 stories. So I know that we could be a 5th floor and not anymore. So this is perfect for us. We can leave home in peace when we know that we are not going to be very high. This is very luxurious. Of course, we had booked a small room here to fit our budget, but unfortunately they didn't have the room ready when we came, and they asked if we would be so kind that we would take a suite instead of that room, because they had the suite ready, of course in the same price, and we said yes. So now we have a suite with the balcony and with the living room and with 2 bedrooms. Of course we need only 1 bedroom, but the other one is for luggage and for clothes and everything like that. So everything is neat and tidy all the time. And the cleaning services and everything else is so excellent that everything is tip-top all the time. But that's the small notes from the hotel. It's a Fullerton by a name. I write it somewhere. It's a really nice place. Singapore is about 100 kilometers from the equator, so it's very hot. It's about something from 27 to 30 degrees all year around, all day around, day and night. And the humidity is something approximately about 95. So it's really, really hot and it's really, really sweaty. So if you come here, you have to prepare yourself for that. So bring only very light clothing and very nice shoes. Probably sandals would be nice. We have been here, or we do every day, like that we start in the morning, have our breakfast, then lie down a little bit, and then go walking another art. Go walking about and then come back to cool in the hotel, or you can as well cool in the various shopping malls that are in these very tall buildings. But it's crucial that you have some time to cool your body in the middle of the day, otherwise you'll be wiped. And of course, as a Westerners, we have to drink a lot of water here because we sweat. And even if you don't sweat, it just evaporates from you. So dehydration is a very serious threat. We have this kind of tablets that goes to a half an hour. This goes to half a liter of water, and then you shake it, and it has a perfect combination of glucose and salts. So when you have been sweating, then you drink that, and you'll be fine. You'll be hydrated, and you have the perfect balance of sugar and salts, which is crucial, because otherwise you'll be feeling bad before long, and it doesn't go away, and your stomach gets upset. But that's something that we have done and know that it's good. But overall, you have to drink something like 3 liters of water every day, otherwise you'll be in trouble. But there are, like I said, many shopping malls in here. They are in these big buildings, and they are on the first floors or underground, and they are very heavily and there is air conditioning that makes the air very cool. But there is no room for accidents. Like yesterday, we had to pick up some stuff for my husband from the universities, and we went there half an hour with the taxi, and we dropped off and we fetched the things, and then we tried to walk back to look for a taxi stand. We didn't find it very, very easily, so we ended up wandering around for half an hour in this dreadful heat, and then people started to come to us and say that, hello, where are you going and are you lost? Because you are, or they didn't say that, but it was written all over their face that you are not supposed to be here because this is no place for tourists and this is no place for banking sector. These are just for housing for ordinary people, this tremendously high housing. And after few advices, we found a taxi stand and came back in here to cool off and start over. But that was interesting, and even the taxi driver asked us first, where did you come from? And then we said the country, and then he asked again, no, but you here? And we said from the university, and he was like, oh, okay, you should have like ordered taxi from there and not walk around and look for a taxi stand because there are none in here. Well, point taken, now we know that we don't go wandering around. But it's a real it's a real issue if you start to wander around in this kind of heat and get lost. Then it can be like really dangerous for people that are not used to this kind of a heat. And we certainly aren't, because we are sweating all the time. I'm sitting here and you can see it on my face that I'm not okay. I'm sweating. Oh, I'm not. I'm okay. I'm okay, of course. And fan helps only remotely because it just pushes hot water to one place to another. But it seems to help. When you go to a new place, food is always, of course, one of the questions. And I tend to eat what the locals eat. That's my motto. I don't go trying to find a pizza place in here or try to find a steakhouse. Or, well, I don't eat red meat very much, so the steaks things is not for me. But we have been mainly eating Chinese food of vegetarian origin. There is, of course, pork. Chinese love pork in here too, and that food is very good, and it's very, very like affordable. So if you go someplace, like in the first night we went to this food court that had multiple stands, I think 40 or 50 stands that offer different food from different countries, and there is even one with the Michelin mentioning. So we ate there. Just I took a plate that looked good and ordered that. I don't have any idea what did it contain. Was it some sea life, or was it just vegetarian or mushrooms? It might have been also, but it was good. It had a soy sauce in it, that much I know. And it cost $7.50 in Singapore pounds, so like next to nothing. And one portion was just fine for me. My husband ate two portions, or two different kind of portions, and he's full with that. And then if you eat in a food court, then you pick your food on one stand and your drinks from another stand. But if the food is not expensive, the water is. So it's a small bottle, it's $3, $3.50. So, and you have to drink something of 3 liters a day. So it's quite expensive. I don't know if the water in taps is suitable for drinking, but I do not intend to test, because if it's not, then our stomachs will be like all over the place for a whole week, and that's not wise. And for the same reason, I eat only like cooked or fried meals, not anything that's salads or something like that, because there is a chance that we get very sick. There wouldn't be a high level of hygiene, but the mere fact that we are from a different region, so we are not used to this kind of bacteria. But we ate in the food court. I will try to link a picture for you in here. There is ants. There are ants in here all the time, and they bug me. And then there are very good Chinese restaurants in here where you can have a like full meal with $50, like local dollars, and it's very good. The only thing that you have to remember is that some of the foods are very spicy. I did that like mistake yesterday. So I put some chili into my mouth by accident, and it was really hot. Then I was like puffing and sweating for the next half an hour with that. And of course, if you plan to drink in those Chinese restaurants, it's better to look how strong the bottle is that comes to your table. My husband ordered this kind of a small bottle that has a few shots, and it was, the alcohol amount was 56%. So it's quite high, and it goes to your head like a cannonball. And the beer bottles are twice the size that the normal beer bottles are. But that feels good to drink that in half in this kind of heat, eating chilies. But the Chinese food, especially to vegetarian ones, are really good and reasonably priced. If you think that where else you had a full meal with the drinks for $50, translated to your whatever currency you have. So it's about, in euros, if you count it with 0.7, then you get to same amount with euros. So there is a good food if you stay with the local food, and it's always some kind of experience if you just stick to the fried and cooked. When we have been walking around in the evenings, of course everything closes quite early, so that's maybe the like indication to people that they are willing to be very hard workers. So the bars close, so they go to sleep and they wake up next morning early to go to work. So that's one kind of initiative to have the people live the life that the government wants them to live. But what was in my mind was this, I see white people, mainly white men here, and they are working in the banking sector. I can only assume. I know that some of my clients have moved here or done business here because there are some tax initiatives to come to this country and start a company here. But then there are these like older people that appear to be very lonely, older men. For example, the man that we saw in the other day when we were standing in the rain, and then this British man came to us and said, just run for a few meters and you see that around the corner there's a shelter that you won't be soaked. And we ran to that with him, and he started to talking, and he talked to us like continuously the 15 minutes that we were in the shelter. And that just made me feel sorry for him. Like this was his reaction when he saw a white couple that spoke English and were from Europeans without a question. Like usually, if I think about these traditional people in UK and from my country, we are not the same. But he thought that we are so much the same. If we have met in London, let's say, he going from a meeting to another meeting, and I and my husband just wandering around, he wouldn't have talked to us 15 minutes or even a word. But when he saw us in here, he thought that we were similar enough or from the same enough culture that he wanted to speak to us and instantly tell us what should we see and what should we do and how are we and what do we think and everything like that, like the whole 15 minutes. And it's only made me think that how lonely he must be in here. That if you live here, do you ever get to know anyone? And the people that you work with, do you get to know them? Obviously not, because they attack us and try to talk to us when they see us. But of course, we are happy to oblige, and we get a lot of good tips from the people that just start to talk to us in a street corner. But that's funny. That's funny in this country. It doesn't happen about anybody anywhere else but here. Or except on one thing. Well, I'd tell about it in another video about this trip that I was in Italy and was surrounded by people from the States. But there was the rain with that man, and that's something that you have to remember if you come here. So bring only clothes that you don't mind if they get wet, and bring only shoes that you don't mind if they get wet. So no suede shoes, only leather or plastic, because it rains. It rains at least once or twice a day, every day. It can rain a little bit, or it can rain like this kind of bunch on the floor in everywhere, because there are pavements. Almost all the roads are paved, so the water stays, and it just runs downstream, but it doesn't just evaporate. So there can be really hard rainfalls without any obvious warning, and that's kind of funny. But don't worry, you won't get cold. It's so hot that even if your clothes are soaked, it's still plus 30. So they will be dry in 10 or 15 minutes if there is any wind. But that's one of the funny things in this country. And of course, because of the humidity and the amount of water that we need to drink, you can see that my face is fairly puffed. I'm puffed all over the place. My hands are like donut, like this kind of a, I don't know what, more small sausages, but I don't mind. It's when we are here, that's the price of it. But this has been a really nice trip. But there is no this kind of a flood of tourists in this town. So mainly when we go out to dinner, it's full of local people, the dining places, and the few bars that we have been in. Cafes are something that are virtually missing from here. So people obviously eat warm food during the day also, and not something small from the cafes. But tea is excellent. So this country was part of British Empire in the 1900s, 1800s, and it became independent in 1965. There has been a same party in power, more or less, from the independence. It still has a 60% holding in the elections. This is said to be socialistic democracy, which is quite contradictory to be democracy, but at the same time tell what's the main party. So it's not that kind of democracy as we think it could be. But there is, of course, the, let's say, positive things of that. And there has been one man in power in practice the whole independence, and then there is, I think, his son or his nephew that is the following leader. And some even say that it's a dictatorship, but let's not go to that if we want to get out of this country somehow. But of course the socialistic aspect comes to, for example, housing. So majority of the apartments are owned by a government, and they lease the apartments. So that leads to very big equality with the housing, and the thing that there are no homeless people in here. I haven't seen any, and I think that there are no such an issue in here. And the employment rate is really low. It's 2%, which is extremely low to any society, especially if we think that there are lots of immigrants that come to do the outside work and the construction work and the cleaning work. But there is a great effort to get them to settle properly and be as outstanding citizens of this society. And I think that that is great. There is only 5 million people here, but the society is growing all the time, so it needs a more workforce. And because of the unimaginary housing, there is a construction work going on all the time. It's It's everywhere where you go. And because there is a certain kind of a planning element in this country, it's obvious. There is no, or the crime rate is really low, and it's mainly due to very harsh punishments. So there are punishments for throwing litter on the street. There are very hard punishments for stealing. It's somewhere from 5 to 7 years in prison, and there is a capital punishment. So if you commit a murder or get into drug trafficking, then you might be hanged. But that will keep the serious crimes away. And because of the punishments for drug industry, there are no drug users in this area, or I haven't seen. Usually when you go, whatever town you go, you see drug users and alcoholics, and then you see these kind of mobs of men that are kind of scary, especially if there are lots of immigration to this country. That's usually one of the consequences. But in here, one night we came hotel rather late. We saw this mob of men in the park, but there was no air of violence or threat coming from them. They're in their own peace, and we were very reassured to go around the park, and there was no harassment, no yelling, no nothing like that. So people are very obedient. But there are, I try to add some pictures in here, because there are stealing is a crime, littering is a crime, public affections are prohibited, so you cannot kiss your spouse in public, which has been very hard for my husband, because he always touches me or kisses me or something like that wherever we go, and now I have to tell him that you can't do that in here, because it's not allowed. And to reinforce the law, there are cameras everywhere, so Big Brother is watching all the time. But those are you have to think about that as alternatives. You have to think these as alternatives. So either you have crime, either you have drug users, or you have these punishments that are very severe. If we think about it in Western standards, you have a capital punishment, which is seen inhumane and not very Christians. But if you have that, and if you have this very strong governmental control, then you have a tidy city, then you have peace, then you have no crime, then you have no unemployment, and you have no homeless people. So you just have to choose, what do you want? This is a great society, but is everybody happy? I don't think so, but majority, I think it is. At least, and especially if we consider that they are from China, and what kind of society China is. It's not like individuality first, but the interest of the society goes first. And that's what they do in here. But overall, this is a great country. It's certainly worth a week, maybe another week, but I'm very happy that we came here now that we have the chance, due to my husband's job. And it's very different. It's always very different to see something like when you are actually there than just to read or watch some documentary. Because in here I can feel the atmosphere. I can talk to people. I can see it for myself. What is it like? But in the end, I really recommend you going to Singapore even once in a lifetime. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.